Hey guys, it's Jason, and we are live for our second annual Halloween Mega Binge. Now, if you don't remember, you're new to the page. Last year we started the Halloween Mega Binge, and what the Halloween Mega Binge is really just a tremendous amount of torment and pain on myself. Where if you with the binges, we kind of do, we watch a franchise at a time, and the horror genre has so many franchises with so many entries. And so what better way to culminate the Halloween season than sitting down and just watching an absurd amount of movies in one sitting. So last year we did Halloween, and this year we are going to take a trip from Haddonfield, Illinois to Crystal Lake, New Jersey, and we're going to watch every single Friday the 13th movie, from part 1 until the remake. And I've said it before in a couple of videos, but just so we're all on the same page, Freddy vs. Jason will not be a part of tonight's/tomorrow's events. Freddy vs. Jason, to me, number 1 is more of a Freddy central movie. Also, with there being 11 other Friday the 13th movies, and only 8 Freddy movies if you count the remake, kind of evens those two franchises out. So, Freddy vs. Jason will not be tonight, but we are covering Friday the 13th, 1 through 8, Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, and Friday the 13th, 2009. So we're going to cover every bit of Jason that you can handle. And I am here for the duration. We are starting now. Part 1 is queued up and ready to go. And I will be going live after every movie to kind of talk about them. Also, it's kind of a little bit of a honest, a little bit of honesty for you guys, because like I said, I'm here for the duration. We're starting now, and it's about roughly around 17 hours, give or take, of just movie watching without me talking about them. Oh, I'm sideways. Let me see. That's because... it's because Facebook films weird. So you're going to get a lot of my overhead, I guess. I'll fix that between movies. So, yeah, Friday the 13th. Like I said, we're going to cover all those movies, and it's going to be a long time. So I'm in comfy clothes, and I've got a lot of snacks, a whole lot of coffee. So I'm glad, like I said, we'll adjust the tripod. And a whole lot of lack of sleep, because I've been up since about 8 o'clock this morning. Woo! So, again, for those joining me, welcome. For our second annual Halloween Mega Binge, we are going to be watching all 11 Friday the 13th movies. I say we. You guys can go to bed anytime you want. I'm here doing this. When everybody else goes to sleep, there'll be me and, Jason. Yeah, if you guys want to get crazy and, you have that little small sliver of inkling of punishment, you're more than welcome to queue along with me. Like I said, I'll be going live after each movie. I'll usually drop a little, hint, or not a hint, I'll drop a post just an hour until I go live, an hour before the movie ends, 30 minutes before the movie ends. Kind of let you know where we're at in the movie. And, I've got 4 in the fridge plus a whole brand new unopened deal of coffee. So, it's going to be fun. And, but sit back, and let's watch what happens to kids that go to camp. I don't even went to camp, to overnight. I went to church camp, so there was no fear of what was going to happen in these movies. It could be. I don't know. Let's find out together. Let's jump in. So we're going to start this year's Mega Halloween Binge with 1980s Friday the 13th. And I don't know, that made me sleepy though, Steve. I don't know, I might if I turn all the lights off, I'm going to fall asleep. So I had to leave some lights on, and maybe just somebody to punch me when I start to nod off. But yeah, thanks, dear.
I will.
So let's get started with 1980s Friday the 13th, and this first one is easy. So let's get started, and I will. Then join me, Steven. Keep an eye. You'll be my alarm clock, and we'll see you guys after the movie. And get ready for a fun night. And happy Halloween. All right. So I don't know if we fixed my sideways problem. All right. So Friday the 13th, 1980. Going in, man, you don't realize how fortunate it was that this little movie decided to bring back Jason. Now, I'll be honest. The first Friday the 13th has never really been my favorite. It is the most iconic of them, of course, because it is the first. And what Tom Savini did with the makeup effects for the time were amazing. A lot of them don't necessarily hold up on Blu-ray. But then again, this is never one of those, never really one of those franchises where you're like, ooh, I hope that looks great in high definition. Honestly, this franchise belongs on a VHS collection, but we're doing them on high res. So, but no, still one of the things. There's lots of things that still work in this movie. Most importantly, is Harry Manfredini's score. Really drives this movie, much like Carpenter's Halloween score. The other being Betsy Palmer, because the kids, and I'll get to the kids in a minute, but they are kids. They're young amateur actors. And the part that Betsy Palmer plays could be played insanely. I mean, it's over the top. Don't get me wrong. But it could be like Piper Laurie and Carrie over the top. And she doesn't do that. She does a really good job of balancing crazy and calculating. There's a scene when she's talking to Alice right before she full blown snaps, where she has this weird smile moment. Where she's talking about he wasn't a very good swimmer, and she has this weird rageful. Then she kind of giggles. Scene where you're like, oh my god, she's crazy and she knows it. And it's really subtle, and it's something that Betsy Palmer is great at in the movie. Getting to the kids of this movie, this is one of the things, I know it became a trope of these kids in these, I can call them kids not because I'm older than they are in the movies. I'm older than the age they are in the movies. But this one, number one, doesn't have as many as the stereotypical teens as you expect as being the first of that movie to set that standard. You do have the guy and the girl couple. They're not horn dogs like they become later in the franchise. You do have the practical Joker, but he's not an openly outward dick like he is in the later ones. And most importantly is the kids in this movie. I think they're all in their early 20s, which is nice, because mostly it's hi, I'm 35 years old and I'll be playing your college sophomore. You don't get that in this first movie. As far as the kids go, of course, everybody talks about Kevin Bacon, who is great, and he only has 3 lines of dialogue in the movie. Really the hero of the movie, on the not Betsy Palmer, side of it is Adrienne King, who plays Alice, the quote unquote final girl, and she has this way of playing where she is what we now see as the final girl, but it's not so much the innocent final girl as the trope became. She smokes pot in the movie and plays strip Monopoly and all those other crazy things that teens were doing in the 80s. But she's not a holier than thou character. And which is funny, like I said, to watch this movie after so long is you see all the stereotypical teenager tropes and all, the rest of this franchise and every other franchise coming after this. And it almost, and I say almost, it does make you forget that even though this movie kind of started all that, it doesn't necessarily have that. There really are no stereotypical teens in this movie. Mostly because it wasn't a stereotype then. And this movie, along with a couple of others that we'll get to later in the franchise, does something that for whatever reason a lot of these movies forget about, and that's to have your mice, your victims, be likable. So many of these movies are just like waiting because you hate these kids and are waiting for them to get picked off. And the ones that work the best are the ones where you do kind of root for them to live through this. And when they don't, that affects you differently than when you're cheering and yelling. This movie doesn't have a lot of that. The kills aren't overly complicated. Basically, what I'm getting long-winded as saying is, hey, guess what? Friday the 13th, the original, it's kind of a classic. So, is it, like I said, is it my favorite Friday the 13th movie? No, I came to this series because I want to see Jason. But the fact that where this movie starts and where we will end this binge, man, I don't know how we're going to get there. Like, just if you have not sat through these movies before, because from here to space and beyond is beyond me. But the fact that we got a part 2 is pretty insane. And, so I guess a thank you to Tom Savini, the makeup effects guru who helped with that final teaser sting, which isn't the end of the movie. People forget that Jason coming out of the water there's like 5 minutes after that where there's the weird like hospital explanation, and then the movie ends with like a look at a calm lake with like this really sweet music playing, which is weird because to have your jump scare not be the ending tag is what we've become so accustomed to. So it is a little off-putting. You're like, wait, that's not the end of the movie. That's right, there's more going. But, so let's jump forward. Let's get to old Potato Sack Head with 1981's Friday the 13th, Part 2. And we are underway. So I will see you guys after Part 2. Alright, so Friday the 13th, Part 2. A lot of people argue that this is the best sequel in the series. And it does have a lot of great parts in it. For one, I think of the quote-unquote survivor girls, the final girls, Amy Steele's Jenny is by far the best. Basically in the way that she portrays her as somebody who from the very beginning is tough and a fighter and but also is one of the few that actually sympathizes with Jason, or the story that she's been told about this poor mentally scarred boy who watched his mother get her head chopped off. I will say this movie is the start. It does a nice balance of, you get the kills. I don't think they're as necessarily in your face as, say, the first movie. But this movie, while dialing back maybe some of the gore, really ramps up some of the sexuality of the series. And this is where that kind of, you start getting that weird blend. But again, there are quite a few likable characters in this movie. Jenny, Paul, to a certain extent, and many of the other counselors. And some of them you do feel bad for. The worst who gets it is the guy in the wheelchair, man. He's in a wheelchair and he gets a machete to the face. There are a lot of ridiculous moments in this movie. Mostly with that kill, and then the kill of the guy hanging upside down is twice. Very prominently, we watch two different counselors being murdered with the blunt end of a machete. One, maybe the force of putting it in his face, but the one having his throat cut with the dull end of the machete is a little, like, just turn that, man, come on. And the whole, like, disappearing dog and the weird sheriff. And sadly, this is the end of poor, crazy Ralph, who I'm sad about, because I forgot how funny Ralph is in the first movie. Just like, you're all dude. And this movie, they really don't give him that chance even though he's in it. They just kind of kill him off. And speaking of just killing him off, yes, there is some great stuff in this direct sequel. And it does have a lot of strengths as a sequel in this franchise. That opening is ridiculous. The idea of, because they mentioned in the first movie that Alice is from California. So presumably you would not stay in the same town. You would move away. So you have left the stomping grounds, and for whatever reason, this one and only time, Jason leaves the state in the form that you see him as. Or is he like riding a Greyhound bus with that toe sack on? To hunt her down and kill her ridiculously in the first of this movie. In a short movie, this movie's only an hour and 26 minutes, it's not even an hour and a half long. And this is like a 10-minute sequence that goes nowhere. It almost feels like an add-on. For no other reason than to just kill Adrian King's character. And, watching this movie, we still haven't got that whole, we still haven't got that final jump scare thing figured out, because you have the moment where, everything's calm, we find Muffin, and everything's great, and then Jason bursts through the window, unmasked, in his glory, his weird Duck Dynasty mongoloid face, comes through the window, screen goes white, and you're like, credits. No. Because it cuts to her being loaded into an ambulance, like, asking where Paul is, and she's like, what is happening? Like, what? What? So, again, they're like, maybe it didn't happen. You're like, no, it's a killer mongoloid hillbilly in the woods. Like, we don't need to, was it all in her head? And then so you're like, well, that's kind of stupid. And then we, for no reason, like, fade in to a close-up, like a really weird close-up of Pamela Voorhees' severed skull, her head. And you're like, with just the eyes closed, and you're thinking, okay, knowing what I know about horror movies, her eyes open, credits, let's do this. And no, it just goes to credits. So, obviously, we're still working the kinks out on that. But yeah, really, it's a solid sequel. You cut that 10-minute opening out, and it's a quick set, and it's fun. It does teach you, though, that while sex and drugs can get you killed, alcohol can save your life, because there's a huge group of campers that live, or counselors that live through this movie simply because they stay at the bar drinking and not go back to camp. Not necessarily saying I'm pro-alcohol, but I mean, if you're in Crystal Lake, you might want to start a tab. It could save your life. But that's pretty much it for Jason's debut. Not bad. There are still, I mean, it's just where they're still getting their feet wet with the sequel. So it is a little shaky. Like, why is he wearing a mask? He's out to being in the woods, not used to seeing anybody. Does he always wear cuts off his peripheral vision for no reason? And we later see the next movie, as a moment of opportunity, he takes a hockey mask. Why not steal the weird caveman mask in this one? But it's the first sequel. And so let's jump into 1982's Halloween Part 3. And I hope you guys brought your 3D glasses, because this movie is coming at you. Ooh. This isn't going to get annoying for 90 minutes, is it? See you guys after the movie. Ooh. Alright, guys. So, Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Man, talk about a gimmick movie. Really the major thing about this movie are two things. One, the introduction of the hockey mask, which is so important to this franchise. And two, the introduction of totally unlikable characters, which is also a huge moment for this franchise. Unfortunately, in this movie, we're given quite a few characters, and none of them are really likable people. And the closest you come to is Shelley, and whether or not you like Shelley, to me, kind of depends on if you grew up fat. And this one it's the gimmick. It's what makes Jaws 3 kind of terrible. It's 3D isn't an effective gimmick for a movie. To me, it didn't work then. It doesn't work now. Just to sell a movie. And so, basically, you're left with a ridiculous amount of stuff that doesn't translate. How amazing is it to watch a horror movie where juggling and yo-yoing happens? But there are some really dark moments that happen in this movie that nobody really ever talks about. One, this takes place, we'll get to that. The biggest and darkest thing of this movie is, there is a girl in the movie who is killed brutally, like most of them are, who says not once but twice in the beginning that she's pregnant. So Jason kills a pregnant lady. And two, we get Chris's weird, gremlins, in the middle of the movie, terrifying, sad story, where it's also, there's a chance Jason might be rapey. Also, this takes place the day after Part 2. This is where the timeline you just gotta throw out the window, because Jason went from looking like one of the Robertsons to Lex Luthor, because we're now bald and goofy. And this movie is, again, padded out a lot. It's an hour and 35 minutes, but there's, again, the 10-minute opening, and it's the only way they're able to keep continuity with these movies is by showing you the last 10 minutes of the previous movie. That happened, remember? So here's this other story. And we're not technically even at Crystal Lake. They never say it's Crystal Lake. It's just private land farmed by a lake. And there are some memorable kills in this one, whether it's the handstand guy who gets wishboned, the eye pop, which is really the only effective death in 3D. But even then, it's 3D, but it's done so cheaply because it had to be that it doesn't work. And if you're not watching it in 3D, which, to be honest, these things would make my head pop like a scanner, so this is just for effect. I did not watch the movie in 3D, which means all those effects look useless. But yeah, I do like the idea of Jason as a little more conniving in this one. And there's a scene in the barn where Chris is crawling across the rafters of the barn, looking down on Jason, looking for, which is a really effective scene. And like I said, depending on how you grew up, Shelley can be a sympathetic character when he's not being an ass. So, all in all, really, besides the introduction of the hockey mask, this really is a weaker blip in the franchise. Of course, it's mostly memorable for like I said, the hockey mask, the 3D, and that kickin' disco intro song, right? Am I right? All right. So, yeah, it's number 3. It's, it's the same thing. We can't all be Halloween 3. Sometimes you get Jaws 3. And, so let's move on to 1983. It's a lot of 3s there. It's like triple 3D. I don't know. 4th D? Ooh. Let's move on to our next installment. 1983's Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Whew, final chapter. Good, it means I can quit after this, right? We're almost 3/3 of the way done. So let's jump into and see how they plan to end this franchise. Even though there are 7 more movies after this. Alright, I will see you guys after the movie. Bye. Alright, so Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Yeah, it's called the final chapter, and it's number 4 out of 11. So, not the best title, but you could definitely see where, for the most part, they actually did plan on ending this series. Again, there's a lot of tropes from the previous film that we pick up in this movie. This time, with the opening, it's like the best of from the first 3 movies, but again, you feel like they've been building to this movie. This is going to be the finale. The biggest takeaway from this movie is really, again, just a lack of likable characters. You have this house full of teens who you really don't care about. The highlight of them is, of course, the famous Crispin Glover dance scene. The kills in this one are really great. I guess, again, Tom Savini came back to, quote unquote, close out the series with the effects. This is the last one really where you see Jason run to, there's scenes of Jason just sprinting after somebody. And as iconic as the slow walk, to me it's a little creepier to have somebody that big that can move that fast. And yeah, most of the kills are okay. But again, there's none of the characters you really care about, and so it's just I almost found myself lost in who was alive and who was dead. And really the highlight of the movie, besides Ted White's portrayal of Jason, and the scene where it looks like a dog walks into a house where he sees Jason, and then voluntarily jumps out of a second-story window, because it doesn't look like Jason throws him. It looks like the dog sees Jason and then jumps out of a second-story window, meaning this one dog is the smartest of any creature in the franchise. But no, honestly, the best part of this movie, for the most part, is Corey Feldman. And it's because it's Corey Feldman not playing a smartass. It's just Corey Feldman being a kid. Now, granted, he's a kid who makes special effects, and the ending is a little bonkers, but for the most part, he's head and shoulders above anybody else. Is the most likable character in this movie. Our quote unquote final girl is I honestly can't remember her name, and she's kind of a non-factor in this at all. She's not part of the group. And you have Rob's character, who may have the creepiest death in the movie, only because you don't see him die, you just hear him screaming, he's killing me. But yeah, the Feld dog, man, crushes it. Until the ending. The ending of this movie is a little, and by a little I mean a lot, insane. I get the whole, we've distracted him with his mother and all of that, let's distract him with himself, which I can't imagine Jason having any cognizance to set traps, but then being like, whoa, is that me? Like, what? But it culminates in a decent death for Jason. And then the fourth and, at the time, final movie, they decide to finally nail the ending, like the stinger ending. Only it looks like it's setting up for a sequel that they never initially planned on making. And it became such a red herring for the franchise, and it's really where the franchise kind of goes off the rails from here, because so far you had Friday the 13th. 5 years later, which is 1985, you have Friday 2. Saturday is Friday 3. Sunday is Friday 4. And now it's still 1985. We're going to jump about 10 years. So now we're in 1995. Yet 1995 looks a lot like the 80s / 2016. Yeah, so here's kind of where everything goes off the rails. And timelines are all screwed up. And for whatever reason, they're really trying to get you to think that Tommy Jarvis is going to be the villain. When honestly, he may be the most iconic hero in this franchise. So, but I can say with 100% accuracy that Jason is dead. That being said, it's time for a new beginning. And we're almost halfway done, man. And it's just a few minutes before 2 a.m. So we're making good time. So it makes us about 7 hours in. So about 10 more hours. Oh, and I've been up since 8. So, you know what? Enough of me crying about it. Let's jump in and see how we're going to deal with the death of Jason. I'm sure they handled it fine. All right, let's jump into Halloween 5, a new Halloween 5. Oh my God, it is 2 a.m. Friday the 13th, Part 5, a new beginning. And I will see you guys after the movie. I hit the button. Okay, so Friday the 13th, Part 5, a new beginning. A lot of people find this to be the worst of the franchise. Barring some ones we'll talk about later. But up to this point, it's considered the worst of the franchise. I don't say I necessarily agree with that, but I don't. This one, I do appreciate what this one tries to do, because we've killed Jason. they wanted to take it back to more of a whodunit type scenario, and I like that they were willing to try different things with this now 5th entry in this series. The problem being that no matter how good like Halloween 3, no matter how good the film, when you go into a franchise movie and you don't get that franchise star, you feel cheated. You know, in the case of Halloween 3, yeah, we didn't get Michael Myers, but Halloween 3 still works as a really great standalone movie. This really doesn't. Like I said, I do like what they try to do, and I like that we get a Jason that is kind of back to being able to be wounded, even though if it's not Jason, it's the paramedic. Another thing I liked about this movie is this is the first movie where it's like, and that's one thing people don't like about it is, for whatever reason, this movie they decided to say, hey, look, we know what we're making. This is an exploitation film. So they hired an exploitation director to make it. I mean, if you've ever seen Savage Streets, you know what I'm talking about. And for whatever reason, then when he turns in the movie, they go, whoa, you've turned this into an exploitation movie. So, what did you want? Because that's what this is, man. And, you know, this one, plays up the violence. This one isn't necessarily fun. And not to say that murder is fun or anything like that, but the other movies have a sense of, it's a slasher movie, man, come on, it'll be fun. And this one doesn't have, this one has a real malice to it that the other ones don't. And I think that's what turns people off on it. This one's a lot more visceral, and the killings mean something, even though none of the characters really are any more likable, some far less likable than the last movies. But because of how malicious some of the deaths are, they carry more weight than they do in the others. Because really in this movie, man, if you don't like kids, so you can at least cheer for Reggie the Reckless, there's nothing in this movie for you. Because none of these characters, even Tommy Jarvis, I mean, I feel bad. The guy can't even be the hero of his own sequel. I do appreciate the opening with Corey Feldman coming back and it not just being a recap of previously on Friday the 13th. But it's like, for whatever reason, Tommy Jarvis has to be the red herring. And even when he's found out to not be Jason, the ending of this movie, which is ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. First of all, fine, the big reveal, it's the paramedic. Okay, why is it the paramedic? Well, hang on, because we're going to give you the ending of Psycho, where we tell you everything why he must have done it. And that's fine. But then it's like, Tommy has a bad dream that he kills a lady, but then he wakes up and sees Jason, and then becomes it. So again, this movie, like the last, ends with the idea that Jason's evil has transferred to Tommy. And put that little nugget in your back pocket, because we'll get to that in a few films down the road. But again, it's this setup for Tommy Jarvis being a villain, even though twice now he's helped take out Jason. We're getting ready for his third outing against Jason. But for whatever reason, they can't not make him look like the bad guy. And I don't get it. So I don't understand. I don't think they really don't understand that character as of now. We'll talk about in the next film. But as far as Halloween, I'm gonna do it all night. It's 3:30 in the morning. Um, as far as Friday the 13th Part 5, I don't think this is the worst in the series, even so far. Because I do enjoy it more than the third one. Probably on par with the first one, where it's kind of like, I like the idea of the mystery and the little clues that are here and there that you see on repeat viewings. But like I said, the ending of this one is ridiculous. Damn, those enchiladas is a ridiculous scene. There's just, oh, this one is like the gritty reboot of Friday the 13th. Before we get to the gritty reboot. So, yeah, to me, it's not the worst of the series at all. It's a decent bait and switch of trying to keep continuity, but give you a Jason movie. And I appreciate that. But this movie isn't fun. So, let's jump into our next film. We're almost halfway done. So, let's get going. And let's jump into Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I'm excited. We'll see you guys after the movie. Alright, so, Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I'll be honest with you. We still have 5 more movies to go, but we're halfway done. And I can honestly tell you that of all the Jason movies, this one's my favorite. This is the one I think really kind of embraces, kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Embraces what it is and has fun with it. This movie is that for Jason. Tom McLaughlin does a great job at being a great Friday the 13th movie, but adding in a lot of, not humor, I mean it is funny stuff, little callbacks, but it's not about being funny, it's about having fun. And this movie is fun. You have over-the-top kills, you have, for the most part, even though they're not really three-dimensional, fun, they're not three-dimensional characters, but they are fun. Even in the brief time we have with them, they're more likable than some of the last few movies. And Tommy Jarvis finally gets to be the hero for once. I mean, honestly, he is the longest running character besides Jason in these movies. And this is the first time and only time we actually get to see him be the hero. And this one really kind of is a fitting end for his story arc. And, like I said, this is personally my favorite Friday. Whether it's just because of how fun some of the kills are, the fact that Alice Cooper sings the end credit song, the ridiculous giant laser scope. I mean, the fact that they changed the name of the town to Forest Green to be like, oh, this isn't Crystal Lake, this is Forest Green. Things like Cunningham Road and, Karloff Grocery and, all that stuff. This is my favorite one. This is the most fun out of all of them. This is the one that really, like I said, embraces what it is and just goes up to make you have a good time. And that's what these movies are supposed to be. When you pack a theater full of young people on a, Friday night in a multiplex, They're there to have a good time, and this movie does give you that good time while still delivering as a Jason film. And C.J. Graham, I think, is a good Jason in this movie. Now, obviously, going forward, when we talk about Jason, we'll be talking about the most iconic Jason, because we're getting ready to step into the era of Kane Hodder. But I do like C.J. Graham's Jason. It's that initial slow lumbering Frankenstein, and we start getting a lot of the more of like the head cocking and stuff that Kane Hodder takes and just makes his own and expounds on immensely. Those seeds are planted here. But no, like I said, I don't have much to say about this one because it's my favorite, and it's one that I always enjoy watching. If I have to pick one out of the whole set, this is the one I'll watch. Because, like I said, out of all of them, it's the most fun. And I don't mean that, oh, it's funny, ha ha ha. But no, it's just the most fun of the Jason movies. Jason's at his most fun. And having hit this spot, this mark, really they should have embraced it, and instead we'll see that they try to step away from it. And to me, that's to the disservice of this franchise. But we'll get into that because now it's time for Jason to fight a new kind of final girl. Carrie? I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. What does that name mean within the grand scheme of things? I have no idea. But I'll see you guys after the movie. Alright, so Friday the 13th, The New Blood. Good news. We're almost at the 12-hour mark. And hey, we're on the tail end stretch now. We've just finished number 7. This one I know is a lot of people's favorites, mostly because this is the debut of Kane Hodder as Jason. And yes, Kane Hodder as Jason is the best part of this movie, including the look of Jason. I think this is a great looking Jason, for your action figure set. This really isn't the most functional Jason, and just because I think it's too zombie, but again, it looks incredible. And I know there's lots of debate about the movie because it was so heavily censored to get the R rating, and now that footage has been lost, and so there'll never be a director's cut of this movie. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Like I said, this has never been a major favorite of mine of the group. I think mostly because as much as I love 6, this movie... The thing about 6 is that, like I said, it has fun with what it is. And that is, this zombie, for lack of a better term, killing machine, killing people in a hockey mask with, equipment. And it has fun with that. It knows what it is, and it doesn't try to be more than that. This movie takes that premise, doubles down, because now you are introducing telekinesis into these movies, and they play it so serious. It is almost laughable, because basically people want to say it's Jason versus Carrie, but really, it kind of is, but it's also like, oh look, Jason fights the X-Men. Like, I don't want to see that, and I don't want to see you make that super serious. And again, we're back to having character. The character of Tina is an okay character. She's our hero. Lar Park Lincoln does a good job, but she mostly is there to look upset and to look at items and move them, because that's how telekinesis works. You have to look at it and then tell it where you want it to go. outside of her, there is not one likable character in this movie. None of the other teenagers, and by teenagers, this is the point where we're like, oh, teenagers that are my age, but they're playing teenagers. And then you have Terry Kaiser in this movie as like evil, like he should be a villain in Firestarter or a villain in the power plant from Stranger Things, and yet it's this movie, and this honestly just isn't that fun of a movie as it should be. If you're gonna go ahead and just balls to the wall, Jason fights a telekinetic girl, man, have fun with that. Go nuts, go crazy. I don't mean like they wanted to make it super gory and all that. I get it. John Carl Buechler's a great makeup effects man, and I'm sure his over the top kills were great, but that's what I mean by go over the top. Just make this movie insane, like crazy over the top. Do it nuts, and instead it's, to me, it's a huge step backwards from where this movie stepped from. Again, it's not the worst of the series, but it's, aside from a cool-looking Jason that makes a great, figure on a shelf, and the idea of just the whole Jason versus Carrie thing, this movie is very forgettable. I know it's kind of an unpopular opinion. If you think that's an unpopular opinion, just wait, because we have 4 more movies to get to. So, Part 7, yeah, like I said, cool-looking Jason. Interesting that they decided to... I know why, because they couldn't get the rights to Freddy, and so they threw in the idea of Carrie at the last minute. So, I guess kudos for them for trying. But like I said, this movie takes itself way too seriously to have an undead killing Terminator fight an emotional telekinetic girl. So, yeah. But let's jump in because we've got 4 more to go, and like I said, we're almost at the 12-hour mark. I'm almost at the 24-hour mark, and let's jump in and see how Jason takes a bite out of the Big Apple, or at least enjoys a nice long boat ride. We're gonna jump into Friday the 13th Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Slowly, the long way. See you guys after the movie. Oh, what? Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't seen it yet, so I hope it was good. To catch you up, Part 6 is my... Sorry, there's a chat. Part 6 is my favorite. Part 5 is interesting, and again, Part 7 is it's a cool looking Jason. But let's jump into number 8, and we will see how this one works out. This is our final Paramount movie, so do they end on a high note? Find out after the movie. Alright, well, the sun is up, and so am I. And we're talking about Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. A.K.A. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason on a boat. Now, this movie gets a lot of grief for failing epically on its promise of a title. Which, to be fair, exploitation movies have been doing that for decades. But there are some positives I would like to discuss in this movie. First of all, the look of Jason. I like. He is a little overly goopy, like he just took a swim in the river of pink slime in New York. But overall, the basic look of him, I think is more functional than, say, the previous entry. That is until you get to the weird, like, rotten apple head at the end, but we'll get there. Look, I get why they had all this stuff planned, and then because of the budget, they couldn't do it. And frankly, the stuff that they've had planned, with, like, Jason fighting people on top of the Statue of Liberty and stuff in Madison Square Garden, just doesn't sound good. But the big problem with this movie, again, and it's a problem we find through most of it, honestly, there are no really likable characters. I mean, you have Rennie, the main girl, but then again, she is the final girl because they say so, and they give her this weird backstory with Jason, even though we're introducing her in the 8th film, and it just doesn't work. And then her uncle is like a super dick, and so you're waiting for him to die, and then the boyfriend's just kind of there and fairly useless. So again, you're left with just kind of ticking the minutes away until this movie ends, because you don't care what happens to these people. Maybe Julius, the boxing kid, who gets his head knocked off. I will say this movie does have a lot of good kills in it, especially after how watered down Part 7 is on the gore department. This movie, Part 8, actually does have some decent kills. There is the hot stone kill in the sauna that is really good. And the stuff in New York, it is kind of funny that for a 5-minute section, the only thing that Jason hates worse than campers having sex are muggers and sexual assaulters, because Jason kind of becomes Batman and takes out a couple of thugs before continuing his quest to kill this high school girl. And that's a weird moment. But really, yeah, that's the biggest problem with this movie. Besides the fact that you promised me Jason in Manhattan. And this is honestly the longest of these movies. By like more than 5 minutes. This is an hour and 45 minutes. And we're in Manhattan for like 30. It's so less than half. And there is stuff in there that is kind of funny. The Jason coming to New York and the weird, like, cockeye at the ridiculous generic hockey, because they play hockey in New York. Billboard and the 3 punks in Times Square. Jason in Times Square is a very very cool scene, but again, it's just kind of, you don't really earn that moment because we have just spent so much time on this boat. But like I said, the look of Jason overall I dig. When the mask comes off and he looks like the Great Pumpkin is not good. And the idea that New York City just flushes toxic waste through its sewer lines at night, to clean up all the homeless people and chuds. So you gotta do that. And that in doing so, he will drown and become a child again and die. Even though we've just spent the last 2 movies with him being underwater. Also the weird, scuba breathing that he does in this movie is really like he's silent and he's terrifying, but he's just walking around like breathing in a paper bag, and it's really not effective. But again, like I said, Kane Hodder is great, and I like the look of him, when he's still in the mask, but there's just a lot not to like about this movie. And like I said, up until this point, the third one, to me, is the weakest. This one kind of nearly beats out the third one, because at least the third one, I knew what I was getting. Yeah, it's cheesy. The 3D is hacky, and purely there as a gimmick, but you're still giving me a Jason movie that makes sense. And this movie really takes a character we're just meeting. And I know I'm saying this because we're getting into the next movie, which is highly debatable as far as giving in this random backstory, but we'll see if maybe that works a little better. But as far as Part 8, I see why after this movie Paramount was like, I'm done. No more. And so this is the end of the Paramount. This is also the end of up until the remake, the use of the phrase Friday the 13th, because until whenever they did the remake, they were not allowed to use it at New Line. They had to call it something else. So, let's leave Paramount. Let's head over to New Line. And also, let's head into the 90s. And let's see what they are doing with Jason now. So, for the second time, let's watch the final Friday. You said that 5 movies ago. And yet, here I am. So, let's see how well, I hope Jason learned his Bible verses, because he's going to hell. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Bye. Okay, so, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. So this is the first entry from New Line. And I know a lot of people really hate this one. And so what I'm going to say is going to be controversial because I kind of liked it. Of course, this movie just pumps the Jason mythos just to the brim with all this new and unnecessary stuff. And it is a blatant ripoff of The Hidden. But I like The Hidden. I love The Hidden. And so you're going to combine crazy sci-fi with Jason, and then you're going to throw in the Necronomicon and the Kandarian Dagger, which is Evil Dead. And then Freddy. So Freddy and Evil Dead and Jason. What an amazing comic book that would be. And it is. And then you give me probably one of the best. I mean, Tommy Jarvis is great in Part 6, but really he's not used very well other than that. But John D. LeMay in this movie really is a great hero in this movie. A very sympathetic protagonist. And, the effects are incredible, as they would be from K&B. Very gory and very over the top and fun. And, with all this new world building between what Marvel is doing, what DC is trying to do, what Universal Dark Universe tried and failed miserably to do, creating your own universe. I want my own universe of Creighton Duke, because Steve Jackson's character in this movie, it comes out of nowhere, and you don't know where he's from. You feel like there are at least 2, if not 3 movies missing in between part 8 and this one. And the funny thing is, they say, I think it's in the commentary, which I listened to this time, but I've listened to it before, is they ignore 8 and just go right off of 7, which, okay, like, you're still going to have telekinesis in it, but a boat ride is dumb. Okay, whatever. But, you know, this movie is a lot of fun. And it does a lot of things that shouldn't work with the addition of the lore and the body jumping and can only be Jason reborn through the body of a Voorhees. It's the same thing that Halloween 6 does. And the producer's cut, which fleshes all that out, I enjoy as well. I like where you can give me the same thing that I want, you know, what I've come for, and yet give me something new. So yeah, I am getting my body count. I am getting, you know, my kills Friday the 13th style. But you're also throwing in a lot of lore, a lot of other references to other worlds that you now set up as being part of this world. And really likable characters, really likable characters, and then you have other characters who aren't likable, but are well defined. And all that confusion boils down to, you know, what will a man do for the woman he loves and his child? And, you know, yeah, there is parts of it that is ridiculous, like, it's amazingly ridiculous. The scene in the jail where Steve Jackson is breaking John DeLemay's fingers as payment for information, or that, you know, the little devil Jason is born through a dead body. Mostly, let's be honest. And then the big, like, dirt mittens at the end that pull Jason to hell. It's all ridiculous. But you know what? Again, like I said with 6, not as much with 6, but for sure, in its own right, this movie is made for people to have fun with. It's a fun ride of a horror movie with some stuff you've never seen before in this franchise, but stuff that is kind of fun to watch. Like I said, it's a blatant ripoff of The Hidden, which is an amazing sci-fi movie. You should totally check it out. And but no, I if you haven't watched it in a while, give Friday the 13th Part 9 another chance. And just kind of watch it as not, oh, well, this doesn't have Jason all the way through, I don't like it. Just watch it as, you know, these guys like Jason, but yet wanted to do something wholly and totally different. And they did. But also, with also a lot of nods to not only the franchise, but to the world of horror. And so, honestly, this movie is a lot of fun. So yeah, you can argue with me in the comments, but I enjoy Part 9 immensely. But we still have, we're in the home stretch, man. 2 more movies. We've got 2 more movies to do, and we are coming to the final movie of the quote-unquote franchise. Because all we have left is the final and then the remake. So where does Jason go after hell? Space? Sure, why not? So let's jump in to our final movie of the Jason franchise before we get to our final movie, the remake, with Jason in Space, Jason X. And hold on to your astronaut helmets because it's going to get weird. I'll see you guys after the movie. Alright, so, Jason X. Look. This movie is a Sci-Fi Channel movie, by all accounts. It's an R-rated Sci-Fi Channel movie. And the thing about it is that it knows it's an R-rated Sci-Fi Channel movie. And for the most part, embraces that. I know that really this movie was only made to keep the franchise alive while they were trying to do Freddy vs. Jason, because it's almost 10 years between 9 and 10. And they didn't want to set up any weird storylines, so this went so far in the future. But, I shouldn't have a fun time with this movie because it's dumb. And it's ridiculous. And it's cheap looking. All these reasons why people should hate it. And it's a guilty pleasure. It's stupid. And I'm okay with it. So, yeah, I don't know. Of all the Friday the 13th movies, it's still not on the bottom of the list for me. It's dumb and it's stupid, but it could be worse. So, again, of all the Friday the 13th movies, I still say Part 6 is my favorite. Probably Part 8 is still my least. And then fill in the blanks. There's plenty of movies to do that with. But we're so close to being done. I've got one movie left to watch, and it's the 2009 remake, Friday the Platinum Dunes. Ugh. Friday the 13th. So let's buckle up and let's end this Halloween Mega Binge and see how they do with giving Jason the old reboot to the pants. And I'll see you guys after the movie. Oh, Platinum Dunes. When will you learn? So, welcome! We have arrived to our final movie of 2017's Halloween Mega Binge. And we are talking about Friday the 13th, the remake, the reboot, so, I remember seeing this in the theater, and, being mostly okay with it. Of the Platinum Dune remakes, Texas Chainsaw, this, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is for another time. This one was the middle of the road of the three. But man, going back and watching it again is just, for whatever reason, I do appreciate. We'll start there. The good stuff in this movie. They do take Jason back to just being a really big guy who's hard to kill, and they do give him some intelligence. There's the scene in the beginning, which is the longest intro to a Friday the 13th movie ever. It's like 20 minutes of this Jason having a girl trapped in a sleeping bag over a campfire, her boyfriend running in to save her only to step in bear traps and destroy his legs where he can't get to her. is clever, and it's like, oh yeah, like Jason, is setting these traps. That's awesome. But then it's like they had it when that's a good idea. Let's screw it up, because then we have Jason. This, some people see him as a force of nature, the wrath of God, if you will, because he punishes those who do bad things. Is it just a killing machine? Kidnaps a girl and has a secret, tunnel maze underneath Camp Crystal Lake full of bells and tripwires and stuff that allows him to know where people are in the camp. That's how he's able to get there so quickly. And it's just stop telling me the secrets, magician. I get it. I don't need to know why Jason can get from one place to the other without being seen. He just does. There are 11 of these. I know what's going on. Don't try to explain it to me. If you have to explain it, it doesn't work. And that's what this movie does, is just it sucks all the mystery. And there's not really a mystery. Come on, man. But it, for lack of a better phrase, it sucks the mystery out of this character. Also, this movie may have the absolute gold medal. Has the gold medal for the absolute most unlikable group of teenage characters in one of these movies out of 11. So it's just nobody in this movie is likable. None of the teenagers are. The closest is maybe Jared Padalecki, but not really, because you're like, why are you here? You're on a hit TV show. You should not be in this movie. And the lady from who ends up, she's now on The Flash, is almost likable, but everybody else, and not even just the kids, every adult in this movie, between the weird hillbilly guy, tongue kissing a centerfold magazine, or talking about losing his virginity to a mannequin, what is going on here? And it's just a gritty reboot, but a gritty reboot that reboots all the worst of the franchise. But there are parts of this movie that do work. I like the opening of this movie, where it basically takes part 1 and 2 and slams them together into this 15-minute opening. We get little touches of the first 4 Friday the 13th movies. We do evolve from toe sack to hockey mask. And Derek Mears, I like Derek Mears as Jason. He's this big hulking silent presence who moves great and works really well as Jason. He may be the best part of these movies. Is just his performance as Jason is really great, and you want more. You want to see him play Jason more. It's just that this movie is terrible with him. He's surrounded by these unsympathetic, unlikable characters that, honestly, for 96 minutes, I could not give a crap what happened to any of them. And again, they still have to do. They kill Jason in a fairly final way, but then there's after the stinger, and this movie just screams corporate cash grab. I mean, the guys who wrote this movie, we're coming off the success of Freddy vs. Jason because they were able to be the ones that finally cracked that code, and we'll get to that when we talk about that movie. And you can tell they're genuinely fans of this franchise. But this movie feels studio noted to death, as most of these Platinum Doom remakes do. I mean, say what you will about Zombies Halloween remake, but at least it went for something different and stuck to it and didn't try to make a 90-minute best of. And that's what this is. This is just, oh, you want to see an updated, like, top 10 moments list of the other Friday the 13th movies with really unlikable kids? Here's this. With a decent Jason. And unfortunately, that's what we're left with. Now, we were supposed to get a remake, reboot, whatever, relaunch this year, and it was scrapped, right before production started. Is this a franchise that could come back with them, getting on board with John Carpenter and Joseph Gordon-Green and Danny McBride revitalizing the Halloween franchise and doing a new Halloween coming out next year? Maybe. I do like the idea of perhaps maybe Blumhouse taking this franchise over, throw a movie together with, and really do something that isn't a reboot or isn't just, like I said, a cash grab. Because that's what this movie feels like, is a cash grab. And to do something really kind of cool with it. Because, we don't see slasher movies anymore. And Jason is one of those characters that kind of transcends time. And you could get Jason to work in a modern day setting. Or heck, with, Stranger Things and it doing huge, do a period piece. But, I don't know, this movie just does not work. And like I said, when we saw it in the theater, I remember being like, well, I was pleasantly surprised by the Friday the 13th remake. And I still believe of the Platinum Dune remakes that have been done, it's not the worst. I don't know if it's the best. I don't think it's the best. I still think of those three tentpole movies, the remake of Texas Chainsaw probably works the best of these three. But it's still middle of the road as far as the Platinum Dunes remakes go. But it just feels like a studio remake. And it's a death knell for these types of movies. Because this movie, while inventive in some things, this movie is not original. It doesn't bring anything new to the table. Like I said, it's a 2009 greatest hits compilation mixtape of, you remember this from Friday the 13th? You remember this one? Well, we're going to do it here. Only, the characters that you cared about when this happened. Hey, we're going to make all those characters completely unlikable. Because this is the worst, most hateful group of kids in this movies. But yeah, so we did it. I did it. Is it almost 2:30? So just a little over 19 total hours of movie time. And like I said, I've been awake since 8 o'clock yesterday morning. So, nothing, I'm not seeing unicorns running around the house talking to me, so we're good there. But we did 11 movies, man, and we have completed our second annual Halloween Mega Binge. So, thank all of you throughout the night and day who tuned in or caught these after they've posted. It's still, we still got a week till Halloween, so there's still going to be some Halloween-themed stuff coming up. And, I can go ahead and tell you, thank you, I can go ahead and tell you what was the conversation Ashton and I had last night where he was like, why are there so many movies? And the method to my madness was these are the biggest. Yeah, I agree. But this is the biggest franchise as far as horror movies go. So we've got it knocked out. And I can tell you next year, it'll be easy to do all of the movies without sleeping, because if I sleep during those movies, I think I die. So, you have that to look forward to. It's a weird, year later teaser. But, I'm going to tease what you probably figured out. But, so, again, like I said, thank you to all of you. And stay tuned, because we've got, I know there's now 2 new Stephen King movies I need to talk about on Netflix. And, we still have a new Saw movie coming out. Because it's now 2 p.m. makes me think of 2007. So 2017, we got a new Saw movie. And there's still some other stuff that's coming out. And as we ramp into November, or Comic Book Awareness Month, because we have some huge movies coming out there, and all this building to episode 8. So still lots of time in the theater, and but for now, as far as Friday the 13th goes, they're back on the shelf, and they'll come off every now and then, but now it's time to see if I can catch myself a nap before I have to go pick Ashton up. Probably not, which means I'll be going to bed super early today. But again, to all of you who joined me, thank you. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good day. See ya.